Our guest today on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans to deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. They do Zoom like we are with this chat today, and they've got over 25 lenders on their panel. He's an all-time great in the sport of rowing. He's achieved everything there needs to achieve. He's won an Olympic gold medal in 1992. He's won multiple Australian championships. He's also won a Commonwealth Games gold medal at Edinburgh in 1986. He's also been magnificent in winning a gold medal in the World Rowing Championships as well. He's had a lot of success as coach. He's also been a commentator, and he's also been for many, many years president of his beloved University Rowing Club in Melbourne. He's also won an Order of Australia for his services to rowing. Anything that's been awarded, this man has achieved it in the sport of rowing, but undoubtedly his greatest achievement, anyway, he'll be able to tell us that, was winning the gold medal in Barcelona in the Double Sculls with Steve Hawkins in 1992. Peter Anthony, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Cousin Dan. It's great to be here. And
yes.
you good listeners probably don't know, or definitely don't know, but I would think we're second or third cousins. So it's a pleasure to be here on the eve of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games.
Well, of course, for those that don't know, for those that need to know, and they'll lose sleep if they don't know, we are sort of cousins by marriage, aren't we, Peter? That's probably the most accurate way of describing it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. My uncle was Owen Whelan the Wrecker, and took that attitude onward in life to try and get down the race course and, wreck as many egos as I possibly could. Didn't turn out always like that, but from time to time, we had a win.
Certainly did. Well, Peter, you had a win in your career. Do you look back on your rowing career and think, wow, I've achieved everything?
Well, at the outset, when I was very, very average, as in hopeless at cricket and AFL or VFL as it was in the day, and running a short distance or any of those other tried and true athletic endeavours, shot put, high jump, long jump, I was completely rubbish at all that. So I needed to look to other things. And that was rowing. So I begged to row, and I wasn't a big fellow. So I had to, worm my way into the program. And, luckily John Sheehan, the head teacher of rowing at Xavier College, allowed me to get into a boat, and I started at the very bottom of that program. And with the VFL career, I pushed that aside because I was made to play footy with the kids who were 2 grades below me. I was so average, and I turned to rugby union where you didn't have to touch the footy. No. So that's how the rowing started. And then from there, in answer to your question, no, I would have never believed it was going to end up where it could, but I was always a bit of a dreamer, and I still am.
Now, Peter, when did you feel during your career at Xavier? We know that Xavier's a big rowing school. All the APS schools are massive rowing schools. I went to Xavier, and it was one of the big sports outside AFL, outside cricket, and particularly during summer for the head of the river. When did you feel, gee, I'm pretty good at this and I could make a career out of it in sport?
When I came out of school, and I got better through the school years, and I ended up getting myself into the first aid. I used to go running every night, dreaming I'd make that crew. So I ran and did other training. It's all about who you mix with. So I mixed with, guys like Paul Van Vinderdam, my good mate from school, still catch up. And we used to do a lot, and he did a lot, and I just hung on and did what he did. And we just got better and better and better. Then I did the same with other people. When I came out of school, I joined the Melbourne University Boat Club. I'm no longer president, but was for 24 odd years. But it was all about mixing with great people. And in anything you do in life, that's what you got to do. So the lightweight rowing program at Melbourne University was world leading. And those guys I rowed with when I came out of school, they were older than me. They became my mentors. If I came down on a Saturday morning a little bit dusty, they gave me the biggest kick up the backside you would have ever seen or felt. And so I learned very early to pull my head in and to train bloody hard, but I was extremely lucky that I was in an environment that was highly competitive. We had a very big squad, and it was like a conveyor belt. And the objective was not just to be good, but was to go overseas every year and go to the World Championships after having trained very, very hard in the gym at the Stan Nichols gym in Caulfield, where we mixed with the greatest athletes in the world, great tennis players and the great footy players, and they'd come over summer in a whole raft of people. And we were doing that all to get the best of training, mixed with the best people, with the objective to go overseas and race against all the other rowing nations in the world. And we were not just going over there to compete or win a medal. Our goal was to always win. Now, that didn't always happen, but the guys I mixed with when I first came out of school at the age of 17, 18 were phenomenal. And I look back on it, and I was the luckiest young bloke going to find those people who had those objectives.
Peter Anthony is my guest. He won a gold medal for Australian rowing in 1992. He's got an Order of Australia for his contribution to rowing, one of the all-time greats, for dashing down to Olympic adventures for Aussie home loans. You're also a pretty determined individual, Peter, aren't you? So if you're going to get somewhere, you're going to get somewhere, aren't you?
Well, Dan, because of those early learnings and having mixed with the people who set our objectives very, very high, I was taught an immense amount, and that translated into everything else I did, whether it was, coaching rowing or working in my career, which is the investment world. It was all about understanding what you're doing, go as hard as you possibly can at it, study what you're doing. If it's sport, you got to immerse yourself in it. I look at all the best sportsmen today, whether they're, the AFL players that we dearly love, or those who are off to the Olympics in a whole vast variety of sports. Those who really, really study and know what they're doing, and set their objectives very, very highly, they are the people who will achieve. And so for me, that was a learning over many, many years. I rowed for Australia for 23 years, and there were good years and very, very average years. But, if you don't set your goals really, really high, and if you don't dream, you won't get there.
Had you over exceeded expectations when you got your first crack at representing Australia at the age of 19? Did you think, gee, I didn't believe I'd get here so quickly? 1977?
Yeah, I think in retrospect, that was a very early introduction to the world of, senior A, elite, top flight rowing. And why did that happen? It was luck in a way that I chose the right rowing club. And the guys who had been there before me were rebuilding the squad, which is very big with young people. And I was there at the right time, at the right place. And their objective was to, get our crew out of Melbourne Uni, the lightweight four, selected unchanged. And we, did an immense amount of work I just think it was our and their, Jeff Rees, Cole Smith, who I talk to every day almost, still row with both of them a fair bit. The expectations and the goal setting was immense. And I just went along for the ride and improved at a great rate of knots in that first year or second year out of school, really. So it was really fortunate to be there.
Well, for many years, Peter, Victoria dominated the King's Cup. It was one of the great rowing events. Roger Wilson, who I know quite well, used to call that. We used to hear it towards the end of the summer, knowing that summer was ending and the VFL season was about to start. Victoria would monopolise that event over their arch rivals, New South Wales. Not only Melbourne Uni, but there are some other great rowing clubs. Mercantile is another one. But do you think the private school system helped a lot in developing excellent rowers in this state?
Oh, there's no doubt that's helped in Victoria, or Melbourne in particular. There's immensely strong rowers who, come out of other great Victorian cities, the cities of the Murray River, go out, East Victoria, you go out to Ballarat, you go to Bendigo, Warrnambool, you've got Olympians from all over the place, and in other states, particularly South Australia, where quite a number of the guys who are rowing there went to World War One, and about I think 2 to 3 fellows from South Australia formed part of the Australian Infantry Forces crew that won the King's Cup for the first time on the Henley River, on the Thames River in Henley, and brought that magnificent King's Cup, Gold Cup, back to Australia. You go to the northern rivers of New South Wales. This is before the times when there were roads. It was all on the rivers, so
Yes.
professional rowing was massively strong and incredibly lucrative. So great rowers have come from all over the place in Australia. Perth, South Australia, and Queensland. So it's not just the private school system, but it's become very popular now. We've got 180 young athletes, whether they've come from private schools or non-private schools, over in the US at the moment at US colleges. So they'll come back and be part of our future Olympic teams. But rowing's in pretty good shape in Australia with great athletes being farmed up all the time.
Do you feel like you've played a big role in that, Peter? Making it so popular?
Look, I think when there was not a lot of medals being won on the Olympic stage through the 90s, and if you go back to 76, 80, the Australian Olympic team wasn't winning in any sport in great amounts. We certainly had wins and medals coming through from the swimming pool with the Mean Machine and John Stephen and Duncan Armstrong and Nicole Livingston and some incredibly great athletes, but medals are few and far between. So when the Awesome Foursome hit the scene and they won in 92, and Stephen Hawkins from Tassie and myself got together and we won the double in 92, maybe that was got a bit more notoriety and publicity back in those days, and that might have helped a bit to help the sport, get a bit bigger. But it's pretty popular now, particularly with girls, which is great to see, because I've got 3 young daughters who all row.
Well, it's fantastic, and we'll get to that shortly, because we know the women's program is absolutely kicking goals at the moment, to use the footy terms. Peter Antonie is my guest on Dashing Downs Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. They've got over 25 lenders on their panel. Peter, we'll get to 1992 shortly, but in 1977, as you said, you were 19 and you've won a silver medal in the World Championships. How surreal was that?
We hit Europe a few weeks before that, probably 6 weeks before, and raced around Europe, and were unchallenged in the lightweight events, which is what I was doing, which is had to weigh 70 kilos, which is pretty difficult, like being a jockey, really. But we were unchallenged, and then we went to the Worlds. It was a long week of racing, and effectively in the final we took a massive lead at great cost, and over the last quarter, or the closing stages, I completely shut down, kept moving and shuffling up and down, but I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, hard to move, and lost all power, completely spent and blown up from having gone too hard too early, not having the skill and the whereabouts to pace myself better over what is a very, very difficult distance, which is 2,000 metres, which takes, call it circa 6 minutes of flat out gut-wrenching racing, particularly when we're having to lose weight and you don't have a lot of fuel in the tank. So we felt coming in that we were favourites, and we were, and we gave it all away. Second was good, particularly being very young, but it was very disappointing because I felt that I'd stuffed it up, having just gone too damn hard. Perhaps I should have been better managed by the handlers and coaches, but tell me to go hard, and I'm going to go as hard as I can till I drop. And I got myself in real trouble over the closing stages.
Bronze medal in 1978. Did you learn from 77?
A little bit, but we just weren't going as well as the year before. So that just meant that it was going to be a long slog to get the desired medal that I wanted, which was the gold. So it didn't come that year, so I had to come back again.
Now, you were a sweep rower originally, and then you became a sculler and one of our best scullers. Why did you change? And did you feel, obviously, you felt more comfortable in the sculling looking at your record? Not that you had a poor record in the sweep by any means.
Oh yeah, I came through school rowing, which is rowing in eights and fours early days, and then moved into the four in the first couple of years out of school, out of uni, at university, and I dropped out of uni anyway. But going overseas, early days in the four, rowing with one oar, and it wasn't quite going to plan. I went overseas in the eight a couple of times, and we had okay results. And one year the whole crew got sick. So a lot of risks in all that. And I felt one day that if I was going to prove to myself that I was any good at this, I had to prove that in the single scull being the ultimate, the ultimate challenge. And if you're doing it by yourself, you're it. And so I moved over into single sculling to learn, that higher end skill, and to really build up a lot more power and strength and watermanship and what have you. And I started rowing in the single scull in the early 80s. And it takes years to acquire the great skill set you need to win at the highest level. And you look at, Kim Crow Brennan, who, won in Rio. It took him, two Olympics to get there. Yeah.
Now, just on that, Peter, a little birdie told me, and we've had Kim on our program on Dashing Down's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans, that 1P Antonie helped her a lot in becoming the great sculler that she became. I believe that any spare moment she had, being, of course, at the Melbourne Uni Boat Club, of which you were president at the time, any spare moment she had, Peter Antonie would go out and you'd do some sculling together.
Oh, look, a few times, but not an immense amount. We talk about what we're trying to achieve every now and again, but it was more giving people like him the opportunity and, making sure that nothing got in the way. Immensely intelligent woman with great skill and goal setting abilities. And Kim probably had the most meteoric rise in rowing I've ever seen, hitting the national team, over the very, very, after a couple of years of rowing. And that was quite extraordinary because it generally takes years to build up the skill set, the endurance capabilities and the power and the knowledge and the racing nous to perform well. And Kim put all that together very, very quickly. Average age for gold medal in any boat class is around 30 years of age. And, Kim got there very, very quickly, just demonstrating how much of a great athlete she is.
Well, of course, she came from another sport too, and within a year she was in the Victorian Queen's Cup team, if not less than a year. And that, you're right, meteoric rise.
Yeah, extraordinary. And this year we've got Tara Rigney from Sydney, rowing in the women's single scull in Paris. And she is a very, very good chance to win. She's certainly younger than her main competitors from Holland and New Zealand. Emma Twigg is the reigning Olympic champion. Emma is going to her, I think, fourth Olympics. And Caroline Florin from Holland is the reigning world champion from last year. I used to row against her father.
Right.
But Tara Rigney got very, very close at the relatively recent World Cup event in Lucerne, Switzerland, half length. And I think that will give her great belief in her own ability. And she's a quiet assassin, I think. So I think she rows exceptionally well and has, the ability to, really, really vie for the gold medal in Paris.
Excellent. Now, Peter, 1984, were you hoping to be part of the Australian team, or was it just a bit early yet for you in the single sculls?
A bit early. I had not switched into the heavyweight rowing. Only heavyweight rowing, or open weight as they call it, was in the Olympic program in those days. So I was still trying to, notch up a win in the lightweight events. And so, no, I didn't even put my hat in the ring for the Olympic program in those years. It just wasn't quite relevant to me. I was rowing certain domestic events in the heavyweight category and going really well. But, I just thought I want to, get done what I need to have done. That's win a gold medal in the lightweight category at the World Championship level, which is on an annual basis. And I was, moving around different boat classes. So 84, I didn't try to go to the LA Olympics. Probably in retrospect, could have given it a crack, but I was still back trying to build up my skills in the various boat classes, the small boats, to win a gold at
86,
world's level.
86, you were probably ready. You won a world championship and you won a Commonwealth Games gold medal. So do you feel you belonged in the Sculls by then?
That was a big leap forward. I call it quantum leap theory. You can plug away and plug away and plug away, and
Yeah.
you think, am I ever going to get any good at this? And all of a sudden, everything drops into place. The weightlifting and the power work you've done, years and years of endurance rowing, and just the pure skill set you need, and the right mental approach to it all. And it seemed to really come together with a great coach, David Yates from Melbourne Uni Boat Club. I had the best equipment. I reckon we designed, helped work with Jeff Sykes from Geelong to design absolutely incredible single scull made of beautiful timber as it was in the day, and beautiful wooden oars that we, carved up ourselves to some degree, imported them from Switzerland, and then, put our own final carvings into those things to make them absolutely top flight. So, got away in 86 Commonwealth Games, won that by 15 seconds. So I was red hot. And at the world titles that year in Nottingham in 86, a couple of weeks after the Commonwealth Games, I was probably running out of gas, having to keep my weight down for that many weeks, but I managed to hang on by 2/100ths of a second. So that was the occasion when I was able to get that elusive World Championship gold medal, which took 9 years.
Now, Peter, you talk about the lightweights and the heavyweights. There's only the lightweights that exist now. For the uninitiated, was it a lot like being a jockey that you had to, if you were going to be lightweight, you were probably an in-between size, weren't you, between lightweight and heavyweight? I know you've told this story a few times to family members, and you showed us the gold medal. I remember at a Whelan family dinner back in 1992, and you explained that story. So was it tough to try and be a lightweight when maybe you're an in-between in regard to what you could eat, what you couldn't eat, and your training regime, etc.?
It plays with your head a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I respect any athlete that's got compete at a weight limit. We were aiming to be incredibly strong and build up, massive endurance. The endurance side and all that work will help you lose weight, but trying to be really, really powerful entails, a lot of weightlifting and lifting as much weight as you can effectively. So on the one hand, you're building yourself up, and on the other hand, you've got to get yourself down to incredibly low body fat. And to make the weight, which you have to weigh in 2 hours before a race, is pretty damn tough, particularly if you are on the bigger end of the scale and you've got to get yourself down to the, exactly on the weight or just a tiny bit under. So yeah, it was hard. And for some lighter guys and girls who are naturally lighter, it's obviously easier. For me, it was getting harder and harder. And so back in those days in 86, 87, 88, lightweights were still not introduced into the Olympic program. So I then, in 1988, I threw my hat in the ring to compete against all the other heavyweight rowers or open weight rowers in Australia. and rowing the single scull domestically and also in the King's Cup, and just do all the other selection criteria, ergometers and everything like that. But putting on a couple of kilos, everything I was doing just took off. So I was winning the single, I was winning the double, I stroked the King's Cup crew in '88.
Yeah.
So I was moving into a zone where I've been rowing, since I'd left school, probably over 10 years, and I was getting into that age where all those components were were starting to get very sharpened up, be it massive endurance, incredible, really strong, still not big, not I was a Collingwood 6-footer,
Yeah.
but, I was getting into the high 70 kilos, low 80 kilo ranges. So, plus I had a pretty big belief that I was going okay.
1988 was your first Olympic Games. What was that experience like? And you finished fifth. How did you feel?
Yeah,
Everything?
look, that was good. I mean, I've been going well domestically. I'd stroked the King's Cup crew because I always wanted to do that, and we won that. I had most of the awesome foursome through the various iterations in that boat, plus Gary Gullick, who was silver in Los Angeles in the men's quad scull. So we had Jon Popper behind me, who was gold medal in the 1986 Aussie 8, who'd come out of Romania when he defected as a young fellow. We had an immensely great crew, and we won by 5 lengths in an Olympic year in the King's Cup.
Wow.
And the selectors broke that crew up and, put some of us not selected and me in the quad and other people in. And I just don't think they got the best ultimate outcome. And the 8 got 5th and the quad got 5th. Actually, for the quad, I was thinking, um, on a great day, we could have snuck into a bronze. We competed pretty well to get into the final 6. Was a great race in the semi. We had in that era, some great sculling nations, and we're in the quadruple scull. They had the Norwegians, who were, one of the greatest nations in sculling, in doubles and singles and quads. You had the Italians, that was their major focus, and they're a highly funded nation and very good at rowing. You had the East Germans, and we know what they're good at, which is rowing and a lot of other sports, but they're good at everything else
Yes.
and the way they go about it. We had the Soviet Union, we had the Czech Republic, we had the Polish, we had the Hungarians. So these were countries, who, were very good. And we ending up 5th was a pretty good outcome, I think.
Did it take you long to gel together as a crew as you rowed a lot together, the quad?
Uh, well, we were sort of like 4 scullers and dropped in the boat. And look, you're going to get what you get out of the sheer numbers that your scores and your sculling speed will deliver. So we're all pretty close in speed in the single, and our power, as evidenced by ergometer testing, and we did a lot of that. Yeah, so we were round about it, and so you put it together. We all, being single scullers, you sort of row slightly differently, and you got to blend that a bit. So it took a little bit of time, but we got going okay. We won at Royal Henley Regatta, and we were round about it. But we just didn't have that. We were actually not that far away from the medalists, but we just didn't have that extra little bit. Give us another year or two, and we probably would have been there around it.
Peter Anthony is my guest, champion rower, won a gold medal in the 1992 Olympic Games, won multiple other titles, whether it be national, whether it be state, and of course won a world championship and Commonwealth Games gold medal as well. He's a respected coach and been involved in the sport for many, many years now. We're here for Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans, and among their areas of expertise are construction, cash out, pre-approvals, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans and personal loans. So Peter, to 1992, and you thought you might be a chance of being in the single sculls. but you weren't selected. Was that a big kick in the guts or backside for you?
No, because the year before, 1991, I went to the Worlds. I wanted to do the heavy single, and I got a good fourth against, the East German Thomas Langer and the Czech guy, Vaclav Halupa, who'd been around for a lot of years, winning silvers and silver Olympics, and Kajtan Broniewski from Poland. Like these guys, I was spotting 6 or more inches of height and 30 kilos of grunt. And I was getting, I was mixing it with those guys. I got a fourth at the Worlds, but I really did believe to win at the Olympics, the best bet for me was to be in the double scull of any boat class. It just meant who was that going to be. So the next year I was going pretty good again in the single, and the other guy on the premises who was going well was Stephen Hawkins, young fella, 21, from Hobart, Tassie, who'd come from lightweight rowing into the heavyweight rowing to go to the Olympic Games, and he was extraordinary. And we were knocking heads all season in the single scull. He was getting pretty close, and the selectors at the end of the year in May said to us they wanted to put us together for the final trial. I was thinking I needed. Actually, I bumped into David Neitz on the weekend, and I was said to David, I felt I needed someone big like him, or some big character
Yes.
to row with. And Steve Hawkins, 5'9",
5'9". Wow.
72, 73 kilos, immensely strong, huge engine, an incredible ability to go into places that I've never seen any other athlete do in terms of energy output and the ability to hurt themselves. And that's what you can do in a rowing race. So they put us together in May of 1992, and we flew in the final trial, which was held in northern Tasmania at Lake Barrington.
Yes.
And we won that in a very, very fast time in cold conditions. And I felt at that time that we were red hot, and we had the final work required to really dress that up. Tim McLaren, the coach, who was in the 1984 Olympic quad that got the silver, highly motivated guy, very thoughtful coach, was an incredible coach for us in that time frame we needed to take ourselves from being pretty good getting together to be absolutely good enough mentally, physically, technically, and tactically to win in at the Barcelona Olympic Games. And so we were very, very bullish about our chances from the moment we were put together.
You both had different coaches, didn't you? I mean, Steve had Tim McLeod, as you mentioned, and you had Brian Richardson, and Tim was chosen as your coach, and Brian went to coach the eights. Did it take you long, Peter, to get used to Tim's style? I take it didn't take you long to get used to Stephen's style because, as you said, you clicked straight away.
True, we blended up very well. No, I felt whether it was Brian Richardson or, like David Yates from the previous Olympics, who then retired from coaching and back to his job as a scientist. Tim McLaren had a very thorough approach to it. He'd been a sculler. Interestingly, he'd come in his early days through the surf club movement to win a number of titles in the surf boat, and moved into single sculling, where the ability to adapt like that required an immense amount of skill acquisition and thoughtfulness. And I just felt, having been selected by the coaches or the selectors, that he was up to the job. And Brian had helped me out through the 1991 year, the 1998 year in terms of the King's Cup, and the intervening years in the double or whatever. But the selectors made the call. They wanted Brian, who'd really come through coaching and rowing in King's Cups himself and rowing as a sweeper rower. They wanted him to do the eight and for Tim to do the double. And Tim did the quad as well, coaching that. And so as far as I'm concerned, all these coaches have got immense skill, motivation, and the ability to bring crews and athletes on, and I'm just the rower. And so that's what I do. Said to Tim, I'm the rower here. On race day, on training day, I'll do everything. I have faith in you. You tell me to do it, and I'll do it. When we push off and I race, I'm the racer.
You were the lightest crew, as you said. You were 6 foot, but a Collingwood 6-footer, and Steve was 5'9", and you weren't obviously as big physically as the other crews. Was there an us against them mentality, Peter, that you and Steve had to prove the rest wrong, that you could actually win in the heavyweight sculls when you probably should have been in the lightweight double sculls?
Well, the lightweight double wasn't in the Olympics at that time. They were still separate worlds. But
right.
I think I remember the German women laughing at us. We're that small. But no, it didn't really bother us because there's some major things you got to say to yourself. Have you ticked the box? In terms of our aerobic capability. Are we as good as or better than the opposition in our aerobic, go all day, pull hard, and have the ability to withstand that aerobic output required to row over that 2,000 metre distance or, 6.5 odd minutes at a pretty high intensity. And yes, there's no doubt because of the years and years and years and years of work we've done, and more recently, the way we've gone about it with the training methodology shifts into more volume and management of lactates and heart rates and stuff. There's no doubt we had the aerobic skill set. Then there's the power to weight, and because we're light and we're incredibly strong through the weightlifting, and Stephen was very, very strong. And I'd done a lot of weightlifting over the years at the Stan Nichols gym, but also, intervening years coming in with, some of the weightlifting movements, cleans and, squats and all that sort of stuff. Power to weight, we would have exceeded anyone else in the event. And technically, due to the coaching and our own years of rowing, there's no doubt in my mind, we were technically superior to the other crews. So, it's all at the margin, this stuff, but if you add it up, and on race day, how was our heads and our preparation tactically and mentally, we were right up for the job.
Did the race go to hand, go as you thought it would, Peter? Was it almost the perfect race? And what was the feeling like when you crossed the line in front?
The race did go to plan. We'd mapped it out. We were going to pull out a big start, which we hadn't done all year. Then we were going to chill out a bit because we knew we had raw base pace. And then through the second quarter of the race, we sort of made sure we weren't burning ourselves too much in the legs because it's a very leggy sport. And then through the back third quarter, we really put the burners on, but didn't really sprint from the halfway mark. So we delayed that, a couple 150 odd meters from other races we'd had that season. And then, 750 meters to go, which is 3/8 of the race. We just absolutely went for it. And that was the way we planned it. And it was, for me, it was as if I was sitting outside looking at it, bizarrely. And the race was really quite intense in terms of the rating, in terms of the strokes per minute and the closeness between us and the Dutch, who were world champions of the year before, and the Austrians they were the world champions from 2 years prior, and they'd been right on the premises over the intervening significant races of that year. So it was all very close, but we managed to hold the Austrians at bay, and the Dutch just slipped back a bit. Thank you very much.
As you said, Peter, the Eastern European countries just love the sculling. Why? You touched on that a bit earlier. I mean, they were everywhere, weren't they? Dominating.
The various, whether it was the Eastern Bloc or the traditional rowing nations of Europe, they're very strong. Whether it was, the Scandinavian countries, the Dutch, the Belgians, the French, the Italians, and all those other countries peripheral to the Eastern Bloc. I mean, we just come through the wall coming down, so
Yep.
we still had in '88 we had the East Germans and the West Germans, but coming into '92, the two Germanys had merged together, so there was only one German country. But countries from Poland and the Soviet Union, they were pretty dangerous and they could pop up with great crews. But that year in '92, it was the Dutch who were very good, the Austrians who were very good, the Germans had been going well all year, but they faded away late in the season. The Polish crew, the Czech crew, they're all the Soviet crew, young. The Estonians were very good, and so that's what made up the real opposition.
Talking of East Germany, and I've spoken to James Tompkins on our program, Dashing Down's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. You got a new coach in the lead up to 1992, Reinhold Bastashki. Now, what did he do for rowing in this country? Of course, you won 2 gold medals, Australia. Your gold medal, which in some ways it probably fades into the background a bit, I think a bit unfairly. I mean, not to me because I know you well, but to other people. And of course, the awesome foursome winning the fours, James Tompkins, Andrew Cooper, Mike Mackay and Nick Green. But what did Reinhold bring to rowing in Australia that this country needed in the sport?
Well, John Coates, who came from rowing, who became the president of the Australian Olympic Committee and vice president of the IOC, John came from rowing. He recruited into Rowing Australia to be the head coach, Reinhold Baci, out of originally Romania.
Yep.
Reinhold brought discipline and process and structure and systems, so that there was much greater process around selection and racing. So we would race through the season against everyone else from all other states. You'd put your hat in the ring for selection. So it wasn't done on just one race. It was done by building up, your credentials throughout the season. Then, if there was a King's Cup crew that won, that crew wouldn't go. The best people would get in it. Whereas in past Olympics, I think they would just send, the crew that won the King's Cup. So the selection methodology was better. The training process and methodology was better under Reinhold, and he was the head coach in '92. It was always good to have someone like that oversighting the various coaches and crews. Yeah.
What were the
Great guy.
What were the celebrations like? We know the awesome foursome boys love to drink. Did you guys get heavily involved? And was there any what's the word I'm looking for? Not negativity, but was there any jealousy from you and Steve knowing that they got a lot of the publicity or more publicity, or was it just good for rowing, Peter?
Oh, it's all good for rowing. Good luck to the awesome foursome. They were great. They were world champions coming in. Were largely unknown. I'm more than happy for them to get out there and sell some canned fruit.
Yes.
And do well out of that. I've focused my attentions on my business career. They were great for the sport. I rode with those guys and against them often. They're all good buddies of mine, and we got on like a house on fire. Of course, sculling is the higher skill, and everyone has to know that. They were just these lumps rowing in a four, but they were cutting edge, leading edge, ahead of their opposition. They were just amazing guys to be on the team with.
Did it change your life, Peter, winning that gold medal?
Oh, it's pretty good to look back at it and sometimes reflect, but no, it didn't. In all these things, you've always got to start at the bottom and get yourself to the top. So it's whatever you do. So that had taught me a lot, and some of those things just take plenty of time. That took me 14 years to achieve. And again, it just set me up in life to realise that, you just got to set your goals, mix with the right people, and go about trying to achieve what you want. And it was just a fantastic time. I mean, amazing, just incredible. The biggest and most fortuitous piece of the whole thing was getting paired up with a guy like Stephen Hawkins, who was just an absolutely incredible athlete. Just amazing.
And are you great mates? I mean, is it bonded you for life?
Steve's a very quiet fellow. It was always very quiet on tour. So he now lives with his family in Asia. He was a carpenter and did a fair bit of abalone fishing underwater. He's lives the quiet life. We caught up a couple of years ago, but I sent him a note a few months ago, and I'll send him another note as we come into the Paris Olympics.
Peter Antonie is my guest, champion rower on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Homeloans. They deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. They do Zoom as well. Your family, I know your family well. Your mum, your late mum Joan, your late father Tom, your 4 sisters Liz, Melissa, Louise, and Sue. Were they there? And what sort of support were they to you over the journey, Peter?
Well, my dad told me to give up 2 years into the career, so I kept going for another 12 years to get the Olympic gold. No, they were watching that on TV. I think they were all at the same house together. So fantastic support, and always very, very, as I said, very supportive for me to, keep chipping away at it. All through my 20s, I was doing all sorts of, jobs to fund it. I dropped out of uni, and eventually I went back to university at night doing economics and finance. But I think everyone just realised that I was going to take my time doing what I wanted to do, and so there was huge support.
1996, you went to the Olympic Games again. You were obviously hoping to go back to back. You were with Jason Day. It didn't quite work out for you. You finished 8th, but it was the best meeting for Australia, certainly at the Olympic Games up until then, winning 6 medals, again, including 2 golds. So Australia were on the map. They were ranked number 1 at the Olympic Games in performance. Must have been fantastic being part of that team, even if the success individually for you or part of the Double Sculls with yourself and Jason wasn't quite there this time.
No, we didn't. We just didn't click. I think Jason had been injured with some back problems, and so that really takes the sting out of us. We had a couple of great races actually, but weren't able to really put it all together when it was required. But that team was very, very strong. You saw coming together. I guess the might of Australian rowing, which has really gone about setting up the program, getting the great coaches, getting the right structure in place, recruiting the right athletes, having some, and that was when you had, your VISs just getting going and starting to do it really well. And your N Swisses and Sassies and, the Queensland Academy of Sport and WACE over WA and TIS down in Tassie. So, then you had the AOS in Canberra, you had, basically the national federations all getting themselves organised and getting the right coaches. So it all came together for a really good outcome at the Atlanta Olympics for the Australian rowing team.
Well, I mean, the Awesome Foursome won gold again. Megan Steele and Kate Slatter are outstanding. They won gold in the women's pairs. I mean, I look at the women's performances. That was probably where our women were on the map in world rowing, because most of the crews finished top 5. If they didn't get a medal, they finished top 5. So it was a great performance.
Yeah, that's right. And, we qualified across a whole raft of boat classes and did very, very well. And that's what we'll be looking to try and achieve at the Olympics in Paris. I think our women's team's pretty strong, the men's team's pretty strong. There's no doubt in the more modern times that there's a more evenness about where the high quality rowing comes from. GB have really come to the fore. They spend an immense amount of money. But in 1996, we got it all pretty damn right and went very, very well.
And in 2000, you elected to go again. You were, 42? But age is just a number, Peter. But unfortunately, you got food poisoning. I think you're in the 4s, weren't you? And the Double Sculls again, and you couldn't compete. Must have been pretty tough.
Oh, look, I probably should have retired prior to that, but I enjoyed the journey and the work, and I hadn't competed internationally in the intervening years or at the world titles. I was working at ANZ Bank in the investment team. In 1999, I did an immense amount of work in preparation, very, very early in the mornings, doing 24-kilometre rows, and at night doing massive ergometers. And I got back to peak condition, but probably not quite as sharp and as hard as I used to be. And I would have liked to have been in the quad scull. I ended up in the double. We weren't going that well. We started to hit our straps. We went to Holland as a lead up just before the final Olympic qualifier in Europe. So we were selected by Australia, subject to the final qualification to get into the through the IOC qualifications. And the week before, I was food poisoned in Holland.
Wow.
And in the days leading into the final qualifying regatta, so even though I'd been to the dentist twice in Melbourne, basically I needed root canal treatment in Switzerland because I couldn't basically sleep with a tooth problem. So I had that fixed with 1 day to go or 2 days to go. And so, that just took the edge off it a bit, and failed to get through that final qualifying regatta by a mere 1 foot. And so that meant we missed out in getting a berth in the final number of crews that could row in the double scull at the Sydney Olympics, and I became the emergency for the men's 8. But everyone stayed healthy.
So who was your partner in that double scull?
James Burton, and we were pretty good. But I think we just had the stuffing knocked out of us, with those final issues of food poisoning in a hotel. I ate breakfast and that was that, and throwing up for days, and then final bloody tooth problem, which that had been irritating me for weeks, having gone to the dentist twice, and I couldn't bloody sleep lying down. Had to sleep sitting up because of the pain of the tooth. So I should have got that done earlier. Anyway, as narrow as it was, but that was the end of the career at that level.
Do you think that if the games weren't in Sydney, you probably don't try to go because it was in Sydney? You wanted to have a crack
no,
part of the home games?
No, that wasn't really a motivation. I just wanted to stay involved. It was good fun, and I was good.
You've turned your
Rowing at 42.
Yeah, and so you knew then it was over?
At that age, it was certainly over. But I still kept rowing at other levels, doing, Henley Royal Regatta, and after head of the Charles in Boston, and a few other signature things, which I'll still do. Now I do it just with the Masters category, and it's all for fun.
Yeah, you're still rowing now. You must love it, Pete. You absolutely love it, don't you?
Well, it's a good sport. I can still do it. I still catch up with mates, and whether you go for a ride or a run or a row, or play a bit of basketball or whatever you like to do with your Masters footy. All those things are pretty important in life. So rowing's my thing.
And you've been involved in coaching. You coached Carey to their first ever head of the river in 1985. Was that a bigger moment, or was a bigger moment coaching your old school to break their 51-year drought in 1999 to the head of the river? That would have been pretty.
Oh no, they were both on a par. Always hard to get a win at that level. I did a fair bit of coaching, haven't coached much of recent times, but it's all about the same things I was taught over the years, getting everything right, addressing all the factors. But yeah, coaching was a bit of fun. I might go back to it when I retire.
Now, I believe in the 85 Carey too. well-known broadcaster Tom Elliott. Was he a good rower?
Uh, Tom was rough as guts, incredibly strong.
So,
No, he was quite good. He was very good. Very, very, very good crew. Um, yeah, they mixed with they blended up very well. Tom was immensely strong. The whole crew had great skill sets of mental aptitude, very calm with the guys in the stroke and seven seat. Had some very good athletes through the boat, and yeah, they'd set their goals years in advance that they wanted to do it, and I was just there for the journey on the last year.
and what do you love about the Melbourne Uni Rowing Club? 21 years, Peter, you were the president. What a performance.
Well, I can't remember the exact number of years, but yeah, the club's in pretty good shape. We've got a number of Olympians off to Paris. One of which is Peter Cracker's Keenan's son is in the men's pair. And so, yeah, we've got a few girls and boys off in the team. So hopefully some of them will come back with medals.
Yeah, well, I know Crackers loves you, Peter, and he said that you've done a lot to help Simon. I mean, how good a rower is Simon? He's a big boy like the old man, isn't he?
Simon's 6'9", very skillful. After years of rowing, he's got a huge aerobic capability. He's in the men's pair with Patrick Holt. I think because they were a bit crook on the last World Cup. Patrick got a bit of a flu, and Simon's had a little bit of back issue. He's over that now. So they're a bit of a dark horse. So it'll be great to see how they go.
And as you said, you got 3 daughters who row. How far can they take the sport? And how much are they enjoying it?
They like it. It's good fun, and hopefully, they can take the sport right through a fair way and enjoy themselves. The domestic scene's very, really good in Australia. There's some great events to have a go at, and also if they wanted to ever row internationally, the US college system is immensely good, and there's other signature events they can go for on the global scale. So the future's ahead of them to see what they want to do with that or their AFL careers, because they all enjoy getting out there and kicking the footy around.
So you're you and your wife are constantly out and about, taking them to places and watching them play sport?
Yeah, well, they play for the Bloods, the South Melbourne Districts Junior Football, and that's a great club.
Excellent. Now, Peter, what does it mean to you to not only be an Olympic gold medalist, but to get an Order of Australia for what you've done and also win a Sport Australia award for your contributions to the sport? I mean, you look back on an outstanding career. I know awards at the end of the day are probably just part of the journey, but do they mean a lot to you?
I think the Order of Australia medal was a quirk of going well in an era when there weren't a lot of great achievements in sport at the time. That was in the 80s when I won the Commonwealth Games and the men's 8 won the Commonwealth Games, and they won the world title as well as I did. So that was a great achievement, but I think there's a lot of other people who get those type of awards who are far more deserving. To be inducted into the Sports Australia Hall of Fame is something I'm really, really proud of. And again, I look at some of the athletes in the Hall of Fame who are, just your heroes and heroes of all time, like your Dawn Frasers of the world, and you go, shit, I don't deserve to be in this sort of company, but I'm very, very proud of that.
You won an Olympic gold medal, Peter. I mean, that's nothing to be sneezed about. I mean, you achieved what you wanted to achieve. Your maniacal self-determination. You've got to be very proud of yourself.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, there's it's all a bit of ancient history now, Dan.
Still, it's been a great pleasure with me chatting to you today, Peter. You've achieved a lot in the
Good on you, Dan. Thank you.
Peter Antonie has been my guest on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. And they deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital city. Areas of expertise include purchasing a property, owner-occupied or investment, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out, construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans and personal loans. Any sort of loans. They've got over 25 lenders on a panel. Enjoy the games, especially the rowing, Peter. Say good day to your family for me, and thanks so much for joining us on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures.
Thanks, Dan. All the best.